right. Now, normally, we would be doing Proud to be an American today, but we're not. We are not going to be doing Proud to be an American today because we got some shit that we need to cover. You know, your man Spann been talking about Ice Cube quite a bit this week. A lot of shit has been going on with Ice Cube quite a bit this week. And so we're going to examine this shit. And only one segment of this show will properly encompass the shit that Ice Cube has involved himself with and everything surrounding it. And that's this. In the Black community, pseudo-consciously based offenses are considered especially heinous. In the Yonk right, the dedicated misogynists who perpetuate frauds are members of an elite squad known as a special Hotep unit. These are their stories. All right, now, it's special Hotep unit time here at the Spann Report podcast, man. And, you know, I hate this come to this. I really do. So we've talked about this a few weeks ago. And I even made a cut out a separate part of the podcast and made it a video. And I was asking a fundamental question, which is whether or not Ice Cube was a chaos agent, right? Like, because a few weeks ago, Ice Cube was talking about, holding the black vote hostage. He was echoing some of that shit that Diddy was talking about, who decided he was going to come out with a political party like 18 days before the fucking election. You know, that makes a lot of sense. Like those of, like, say, Charlemagne the God and, like all that, we're going to hold our vote and all this other shit, right? Now, Diddy has since come around and said he's going to vote for Joe Biden. He endorsed Joe Biden, this and the other, right? But Ice Cube, when he initially came out, was talking about, people who would tell you to go vote and not ask for something they suspect, this, that, and the other. And as we talked about this here on the show, is like when we talk about people going to vote, obviously there's a contrast in how we're telling people to vote or what we believe would be their, voting within, for their interests, especially as it pertains to black people, right? So, the fact that like Cube came into this relatively late into the process threw a lot of people like, man, what the fuck is he really doing? Right. In much the same way that like with Kanye jumping in bed with Donald Trump and everything else, like what the fuck is he really doing? And why would he allow himself to be used in such a way? And a lot of folks, that question is being asked of Ice Cube. How and why would you allow yourself to be used in such a way? And Ice Cube, as of right now, doesn't believe he's being used, but trust and believe the nigga is being used. Right. And like one of the things that so he's got he's got this contract with Black America, right? And over the course of a few interviews, he's explained that like he came to his radicalization, so to speak, or his activation, so to speak, after the death of George Floyd, where he's like, after the death of George Floyd, I assumed that, like, at first I assumed that a lot of the things that I was asking for that's in the contract with Black America were being done, but I looked around and they weren't, and so I stepped forward and everything else, right? And he was on Roland Martin, so we're gonna play a lot of that Roland Martin interview because there's a few different points on it that I kind of want to point out where Ice Cube is fucking up royally. But yeah, so he decided he was gonna come up with his contract with Black America, and he submitted it to the Biden campaign, and he submitted it to the Trump campaign, and he said the Biden campaign told them, like, yeah, we like a lot of the stuff that's in here. We'll talk to you after the election. And then he said the Trump campaign said, yeah, we like a lot of the stuff that's in here. Let's see what we can we holler at you? Can we work with you? And he said he was willing to do that, right? Off top, that willing to work with the Trump administration at this point, a lot of people are very skeptical of, because Donald Trump has been president for 3.5 years. If Donald Trump was interested at all in helping Black people in any significant way, he said 3.5 years to do it. He hasn't done so. And there have been many instances where Donald Trump could have, tamped down a lot of the rhetoric, could have kept, he could have not hoodwink, or like did the wink and a nod to a lot of white supremacists and those who are attempting to suppress the votes of African American people in this country. But he's chosen not to do so. So the fact that Ice Cube at this late juncture feels as though he can talk to these campaigns and that they're both the same side of this, of the coin or whatever else, which is a false equivalence, and we'll get to that shit too. But like the fact that he's doing this at this particular juncture, 18 days out, 20 days out, a few months, well, we only got two choices. Where was he in 2018? People are asking these questions of Ice Cube, right? And it's unfortunate that Ice Cube's answers about these questions are sorely motherfucking lacking, right? And one of the things that made me think about, really made me think about was Lee Atwater. For those of you who are not familiar with the name of Lee Atwater was a Republican strategist. I believe he worked for the Richard Nixon campaigns. He worked for the Ronald Reagan campaign, and he was articulating in an interview. He articulated the tactics around the Southern strategy, so to speak. And with the Southern strategy, what they ended up doing was it was a way in which they spoke about policy. And when they spoke about policy, they would use innocuous language, and it would be in language that, any reasonable person would be like, so that's what that is. Okay, then I ain't got no problem with that. But ultimately, the actual effectiveness of the legislation and the policy affected blacks and minorities in a much more adverse way than it did white folks, right? And so you've got black people who were sometimes championing these policies, not knowing that they were also amplifying a message that could adversely affect their communities. And I feel like Ice Cube right now is being used in that way, right? Where Ice Cube is aligning himself, although he says he doesn't endorse Trump, but the fact that he's being seen in any sort of way right now as linked to the Trump administration is problematic. And so I kind of want you guys to listen first here to this interview with Lee Atwater as he explains a bit of the Southern strategy and how they talked about policy and how they, dog whistling, so to speak, right? We're saying one thing, but we're saying another thing too at the same time. And if you're acute enough on what we're really meaning, you'll pick up on it. So let me see if I can pull this up. Where is that? Okay, do I have it? Yeah, I do have it. So let me pull this up. And we're going to listen. This is Lee Atwater. I believe this was they said it's in 1981. So let me go ahead and pull this up so you guys can watch right along with. Here we go. Check this out, y'all. In this audio made public for the first time ever, Atwater lays out how the Republicans can win the vote of racists without sounding racist themselves. Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, now y'all aren't quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like force busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger, So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner. All right. So yeah. And we hear a lot of that, and we see a lot of that in how we talk about policy today, where they talk about voter ID laws, right? And they'll talk about it in an innocuous way, like, well, shouldn't you have to have an ID in order to go vote? And never mind how difficult it can be for some people to obtain like the proper identification for them to be able to vote, right? Like take, for instance, someone who was born, like a senior citizen who was born, in a time where they weren't issuing birth certificates, or their birth certificate can never be found, right? But they need that as part of their of their identification credentials in order to apply to register to vote and everything else. And so we see a lot of that happening today. And like with Ice Cube, like Cube again, although he may say right now that he isn't endorsing anybody, being seen as linked to this guy at this particular point in like the nation is like, come on, man. Like, think about this for a second. Steve Harvey met with Donald Trump after his inauguration. I don't know if it was after the inauguration or after he had won the election and he was just president-elect. But Steve Harvey went and met with Donald Trump. Steve Harvey got shit from the black community because the black community wasn't fucking with Trump then. Jim Brown was going up there to go meet with Donald Trump. And I don't know what the fuck Jim Brown was going up to meet with Donald Trump with or for, but what has resulted from Jim Brown going to meet Donald Trump? What resulted from Steve Harvey going to meet with Donald Trump? Like, what policies actually came from that, right? So Ice Cube saying, well, okay, they wanted to take part of my contract with Black America. They came out with the platinum plan, which I'm still thinking like, man, who the fuck came up with that name? It's like even the name right now is like, man, so y'all just think black folks is like into shiny shit, okay? But then you've got the Trump administration coming out on Twitter, Katrina Pearson, who's been a Trump campaign surrogate for quite some time. She was a campaign surrogate. She used to be on TV for him quite a bit when he was running in 2016, announced that Ice Cube was a part of helping them come up with the platinum plan, right? Now, Cube would say he wasn't being used, but he has to know that at this particular juncture, like, them attaching themselves to anybody of his stature in pop culture space means a lot to them, because a whole lot of public people ain't fucking with the Trump campaign. They're just not, right? So I'm gonna play a bit of this Roland Martin interview with Ice Cube, because he went to Roland Martin. He said, here's the other tripped out part. So Cube initially was scheduled to go on CNN, the Chris Cuomo show. And then suddenly, like, he came back out, like something like somehow that got canceled initially. And he said something about them not being able to handle the truth and that he had been banned from CNN, this, that, and the other. Eventually that actually happened, though. He was on Chris Cuomo last night. I saw it. Right. But before he got on Chris Cuomo's show, he was on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And so I'm gonna pull this up because we got a bit to break down. So and this is part of the reason why we're not doing Proud to Be an American, because we got quite a bit to break down. And there I got the timestamps of the things that I really wanted to kind of address from what I got from it. So we're gonna get through this quite, we won't be playing the whole 37 minutes of this interview is what I'm saying. So here we go. We're gonna start here. And they were asking Cube, like, what part of the platinum plan supposedly mirrors what's going on with the contract with Black America that he developed. So here we go. Let me pull what's that, 620? Okay. So let me pull this up so you guys can watch right along with. All right. Here we go. Check this out, y'all.
But with your contract, it lists these 13 different points here. And again, in their plan, what do you see in the platinum plan they released that mentions that mirrors anything that's in yours?
You got, if I'm looking at it, agreeing to direct VC money to Black investment companies up to $40 billion.
See, a lot of people have been talking about
that's
this
all he had.
$500 billion. That's not going to Black people. In fact, that's just actually the infrastructure funding program. That's not actually $500 billion going to Black people. And then when they say,
well, how many billion is the other one given to Black people?
No. That's not. No, I'm saying.
Okay, here's the thing. So he was asked what part of the platinum plan mirrored what he had in the contract with Black America, and he talked about them putting venture capitalist money into Black ventures. And Roland is pointing out to him that the $500 billion that is a part of the platinum plan is actually just part of the general United States government fund for development, but it isn't necessarily earmarked specifically for Black people. And so Ice Cube in this moment was like, well, what about the other one? What the other people talking about? Talking about Joe Biden's plan right now. Mind you, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that Joe Biden had a plan, not just one plan, but two plans, one for economic prosperity and one for the social justice aspect for Black Americans. And he had that shit up back in March. The plan's been available on the website. Both of those plans. The one of those plans is 22 pages long, right? So he hadn't read the other plan. He hadn't read it. He's asking Roland right now, well, how much is the other plan talking about giving them? Like, if you had read the plan, you know that. Right. And so off top, I'm like, yo, and I see a lot of people, because it's Ice Cube, they're like, yo, man, like, it's Cube though. Like, and y'all tearing down another Black man. Like, it ain't about tearing them down. It's like, listen, dude, if you're going to get up here talking this shit, know what you're talking about, man. You on a national fucking platform. CNN is talking to you. Why else would they be talking to you other than the fact that you're famous? Know what you're talking about if you're going to do this sort of shit. And so he obviously hadn't read the plan. There was plans available before his contract with Black America, before this, this so-called platinum plan by the Trump administration. And yet he's allowed himself to be linked, although not endorsed, but linked to the Trump administration when it comes to what they're going to do for Black people when he's been president for 3.5 years and ain't did jack shit. So, yeah, I just noticed that, man. Like, he's talking about so what is the other people talking about? Had you read the plan, you'd already know, and you wouldn't be asking that question.
And that's not even, they list this thing under Black economic empowerment and access to capital. It says seek infrastructure funding that will lead to widespread growth in the annual $500 billion federal contracting opportunities. Even that line right there is not for Black people. That's federal contracting opportunities for everybody. So that's not, so they're trying to make it sound like, oh, 500 billion to Black people. It's not. That's the actual annual program overall for everybody.
Yeah, I understand what you see in that.
I understand what you're seeing there. So yeah, man. When it came to trying to figure out what was in the platinum plan and how it mirrored what may have been in the contract of Black America, he had that one point, and like even that was not necessarily specific. And he seemed even like unsure with whether or not the conversation would even go on beyond that. The other part that I kind of wanted to highlight, it says, does Cube believe he was being used by the Trump campaign? And he kind of spoke to that too. This is a question that I had, and it came up during the interview. So let me see if I can pull that up. What part was that? Okay, it's right here. All right, so check this out.
For their purposes, as opposed to really what happened.
Look, I knew whoever
ourselves to Ice Cube. Did you believe that you were used politically for their purposes, as opposed to really what happened?
Look, I knew whoever I engaged with would use that politically. I don't care about that part. The part I care about is getting something done. Look, my plan is called the contract with Black America. So all of them lacking when it comes to that. So
it's clear already he hadn't even read the Biden plan. It's already clear that he hadn't read the shit, right? So he's talking about whose plans are lacking and all these other things. You didn't even know what Joe Biden had been offering. You're asking Roland Martin questions about their plan, having not read the damn thing. This is like...
that's what I'm pushing. So anybody who's going to implement those plans into their plan, then I'm gonna take a look at it. But both plans are lacking, and that's why we become educated voters for real. And then you pick who you want to pick. But at the end of the day, for us not to engage with both sides of the aisle to fix this, which I think is an American problem, that to me ain't gonna help us in the end.
All right. So here's another thing that I think here's another part that I think Cube is like really kind of fucking up on. And it's the idea that both sides are the same, right? That we have to engage both sides in similar ways in order to get the results in which we want. Right now, one side is clearing away an adversary to the advancement of Black people. And that's the side, ironically, that he's right now linked to. And this is part of the reason why Black people are giving him the shit that they're giving him, because he's linked himself to people who have decided that, like, the votes of Black people don't necessarily matter unless right now we can use it politically, right? And so, there's like we've talked on this show ad nauseum about voter suppression. We talked on this show ad nauseum about some of the ways in which the criminal justice system has not necessarily worked for Black people. We've talked about how the Republican apparatus at this particular juncture has allowed for that to happen and continue to do so. And they cheer on the results of the current system as it is. We've seen people attached to the Trump administration talk about, say, for instance, the killers of Breonna Taylor. Like, the attorney general for that particular state, Kentucky, is a Republican, strong Mitch McConnell ally, strong Donald Trump supporter, spoke at the Republican National Convention, right? We talk about, like, felons getting the right to vote in the state of Florida. The person who was, like, standing in staunch opposition to that, current governor of the state of Florida, Republican, Ron DeSantis. So, like, there are example after example after example of the people with whom he's linking himself with. And I know he keeps, like, again, I'm saying linked. I'm not saying he endorsed them, but right now he's linked to these people. Got to understand it. He's linked to them. You're linked to people who have been adversarial towards the advancement of people of color or Black people, however you want to describe us. He's been linked to these folks, and they've been adversarial to us, and thinking that if I talk to them, then suddenly, like, maybe we can come up with some sort of deal and everything else. And it made me think of this shit when I was listening to him talk. And for those of you who are fans of The Wire, you might be able to kind of latch onto this too, but it made me think of this particular moment between Avon Barksdale and Stringer Bell. Avon Barksdale representing most of Black America, and Cube representing Stringer Bell.
That nigga took our money, man. I seen it coming. Well, he gotta go. Nah, you a fucking businessman. You want to handle it like that. You don't want to get all against the wild with it and shit, right? What I tell you about playing them fucking away games? Yeah. They saw your ghetto ass coming from miles away, nigga. You got a fucking beef with them? That shit is on you.
It made me think of that, right? Because right now he's mad that, like, like, I'm not linked with them. I'm not endorsed with them. I didn't work with them. They took the look at my plan, this and the other, and, like, he's upset with us, or necessarily not even. He's like, don't shoot the message and all this other shit. Like, nah, nigga, we trying to tell you. There's a reason why the vast majority of Black people ain't fucking with this dude. And the evidence has been overwhelming over the course of the last 3.5 years, had you been paying attention. And had you also been watching the other famous Black dudes that this motherfucker has tried to use in order to gain inroads with Black people. Notice it's mainly Black men that he's targeting to use that way. Right? Check out Kanye West. Now, Kanye West, like, people have kind of, like, giving Kanye sort of like, well, Kanye kind of crazy, this, that, and other, but Kanye West hasn't necessarily been canceled. Them Yeezys still sell. People still buying his clothes, or, that kind of shit or whatever. People still fucking with Kanye shit. Chrisette Michele can't say the same. Chrisette Michele got canceled. And you know why? Because her audience is primarily Black women, and Black women do not fuck with Donald Trump in no measure at all. I believe they said maybe 2% of Black women, there's always that, that eyeball nigga, but nobody fucks with him like that. And so him latching himself to this, talking about it's for the betterment of black people, and we got to engage with both sides, this, that, and other. Like, nah, man, some people you don't really have to fuck with at all. You ain't got to shake every goddamn hand. You ain't got to talk to every goddamn person, man. Like, you can work around a motherfucker if you need to. And if you do the things that you need to do politically, like, say, for instance, okay, Donald Trump wants to get this shit done or whatever, and he stands in stark opposition to what the fuck we need, then we need to make sure that we have a government that's going to make sure that's going to hold him accountable. Have a Senate and a House of Representatives that's going to make this motherfucker do what the hell we want him to do, as opposed to him just dictating us what the fuck is going to happen to us. Fuck that. We ain't got to just like engage with him directly. We can bend the motherfucking government to our will if we play the game correctly. But linking ourselves to a motherfucker simply because he got the title of president right now, and you talking about he's the man in power, and you think he's going to do this shit unilaterally? No, nigga, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this shit works. So, yeah, man. Let's see. What's another part? 14. Here's another thing. There's another question that was coming up. Okay, Trump's plans for black men, because this is actually where Roland Martin talked about when we talked about black men. There's a lot of brothers, man, who are susceptible to this shit, who are susceptible to this messaging, and they kind of break down how that came to be. So let me go ahead and pull this up, and we'll break this down too.
Yeah. Now, you said that, of course, Trump didn't stop all these things or didn't mention these things. Okay, maybe it was before he knew he needed the black vote as much as he do. You never know. This is what deals are made of. So I don't know what they're gonna do.
No. That's actually that's not the case. And hold on. I can tell you personally. No. Hold up. You said before you knew the black vote. I just want to just correct something, Ice Cube. I'm gonna let you finish. I just want to correct something. I met with the White House in 2018. They told me directly in 2018, we think we can get 20% black male support in the 2020. So it didn't. They were fully aware of that.
Why'd you meet with him? Why'd you meet with him?
I'm a journalist.
Why'd you meet with him?
I'm a journalist.
What'd you meet with him to talk about?
I'm a journalist. I met with them to talk about public policy issues, to ask them those various
public
questions.
Policy issues, and right. Thing was
now notice how agitated he got with Roland Martin for meeting with the Trump administration. Like, well, why was you meeting with him? Like, again, know who you talking to, know who you dealing with. Like, Ice Cube right now seems to have this oblivious motherfucking existence right now where he doesn't even understand why people would be talking to certain people, why people would have the ideas that they do, why people don't fuck with Donald Trump the way that they don't right now. Like, he's oblivious to a lot of this shit. And truthfully speaking, he admits to it in this shit that he wasn't even politically inclined until the death of George Floyd. You've had 3.5 years of this nigga in the motherfucking office, and that's what got you? It took that? God, man. I swear, brothers, I swear, we can't be this fucking simple. We can't be this fucking simple. Bottom line, man, it's way too much shit on the line for us to act this motherfucking oblivious, to be this oblivious, and to act this fucking simple, to think that, well, me meeting with Trump is going to get something. What has it gotten any of those niggas that met with him the last 3.5 years? What has he shown you at all? The last 3.5 years? Honestly. Oh, man. That's not it. That's not all of it. Hold on.
To get 20% of the vote.
No, right. Okay. No, they said not 20% of the vote.
Did they think they was going to get that for free?
Right. This is what they said. They said they believe they could get 20% of the black male vote, and they specifically said they were going to use criminal justice reform and economic policies.
Why did they think they can get 20% of the black male vote? Why do they think that?
He's trying to explain the shit to him, and right now he's not even allowing him to explain the shit because he's upset right now. Ice Cube right now is being challenged on the shit that he's been saying. He's upset right now. He won't even allow the man to tell him exactly what the Trump administration, the people he's linked to tell him exactly what the fuck they've been saying about how they're going to attract to themselves to black men. Just
because they said they think that they can appeal to disaffected black men. They point blank, they know black women don't like them.
Why can they appeal to that demographic? Who's not?
So also keep in mind, and this is Ice Cube's tell without telling it. He keeps bringing this back to what the other plan was, what the other side is saying. The focus right now is what the Trump administration has said about black men and how they can appeal to black men and how they can use black men in order to advance the agenda that they want to promote. And so right now, Ice Cube is making this about, well, what is the Democrats talking about? Right? How do they think that they can appeal to black men? Why do Republicans feel that they can do that? As if it's a democratic deficit because they're attracting black men. It's like, hey, listen, black men and black women and black LGBT and like this community isn't like just one thing. And so in coming up with like this contract with Black America, like the only people with whom Q was thinking about when he came up with that was black men. And so to have like this adversarial sort of response to, listen, the Trump administration feels like they can attract black men. And you instantly go to, so what about what the Democrats is doing? It ain't the same shit. It's not the same shit. And the evidence has been clear as day for the last 3.5 years, how the Trump administration, how this current rendition of the Republican Party has exerted itself over the past 3.5 years since Trump has been in office. Like, I want y'all to I implore you, man. I implore you. Please don't be so fucking simple. No, that wasn't it.
Not appealing to that demographic. How can they swoop in and get it?
Who?
That should have been covered.
What do you mean?
This is what I'm asking. How can they swoop in and get something that's supposed to be covered?
Well, first of all, that's not the case because in 2012, between Obama and Romney, there was a 9-point gap between black men and black women who voted for Obama and Romney. In 2013, with Trump and Hillary Clinton, that expanded to 13%. Now, when you look at 2020, they believe that, we think there's an opportunity here for us to be able to appeal to black men on economic policies because they say black women can't stand it.
Well, it's not being done for black men in this country that the numbers growing.
Because first of all, because the difference between black men and black women, black men are more likely to be.
Why don't the
hold up. You asked the question. I'm gonna answer it because this is from focus groups, from polling data. Black men are more appealed by Trump's anti-immigration position than black women. That's one. That's one of the issues there. One of the issues that we also see is that we've seen where black men feel as if the Democrats have appealed more to black women than black men. Thirdly, Donald Trump, by touting the First Step Act, saying he got criminal justice reform done and Democrats didn't, which is actually a lie. The mistake that Democrats have made is they haven't taken credit for the First Step Act because if the Democrats don't pass it in the House, it actually don't get done. And so they see an opportunity to be able to target black men who are disaffected by both parties by appealing to their pocketbooks, their 401ks, by using tax policy. And that's what their strategy is.
All right. So, yeah, man. Some away games, man. Like, and here's the other part about this. And I get this feeling that like Ice Cube, I get the feeling that Ice Cube is used to being in the room because of who he is. Ice Cube is used to being in rooms where people simply defer to what he's saying because Ice Cube is the decision maker. Ice Cube is the money maker. And like we're going to roll with what Cube says. I feel like at this particular moment, Ice Cube has been so far removed from being challenged on a lot that he's not used to the scrutiny. And he's bristling at the scrutiny. So when he's having a discussion with somebody who's actually learned on some of these issues, who does this on a daily basis, he's woefully unprepared. And also, not even just like someone like a Roland Martin, but anybody who's been dealing with public policy, anybody who's been dealing in government for the better part of the last 10, 15, 20 years or whatever, and who's working in these capacities, like they see somebody like Ice Cube coming a mile of fucking way. Here's somebody who believes that like, yo, I got this revolutionary motherfucking plan and they need to jump on this plan and I'm gonna hold the black vote for hostage. And true enough, and I say this not to disparage rappers, but like, yo, man, think about how motherfucking arrogant you got to be like, yo, man, Ice Cube rapper, developed a plan for Black America. Y'all need to get with it or Black people ain't gonna vote. And fuck all of the work that, you know, Black economists, Black educators, Black social leaders, Black fucking organizers, community organizers, Black academics, all of the work that these people have put in and already presented in legislation, already had legislation that passed and was waiting for further passage from the Senate and the White House, and you believe it like, yo, man, they ain't doing nothing. So I got to do something. Think about how motherfucking arrogant that is, man. Think about how motherfucking self-centered and self-serving that is for you to believe that, like, at this particular juncture, we need you, of all people. It's you that we need to get behind and fuck all the work that all these other people have been doing. Like there's a level of disrespect there that I think a lot of people have taken notice to when it comes to Ice Cube and a lot of this bullshit he's been talking about these last few days. As much as you may like, you may gravitate yourself towards this contract of Black America, as much as you may like Ice Cube and believe that people are being hard on Ice Cube for no reason. Like people, it's not that people don't have no reason to criticize Ice Cube, and it's not to say that his effort isn't necessarily like something for the benefit of Black people. I think the ways in which he's going about it is what people are really fucking mad at, like, and how he's going about it, the timing of it, all of this shit. Also, with whom he's trying to do this with, and the evidence that we have that these people don't mean us no good. So, the other part about this is like the question was asked during this interview, like, yo, why the fuck are you just now getting into this game? Right. And this is the question that I asked weeks ago. Like, hey, man, like they didn't have a primary. It was like 18 motherfucking Democrats on that side. You could have been like advocating for this shit months ago, like last year, 2018. Where the fuck was you? They actually brought this up during the interview. So let me go ahead and play that and we can talk about it.
They said, why is Ice Cube only talking about this contract now? So the person wanted me to ask, where was Ice Cube doing the primary? Where is he in 2018? How do you answer people who say that?
I was actually just, you know, being an artist, you know, rapping, thinking all this stuff was covered, thinking people that actually was in power was out doing their job, making sure they had something specifically for Black people to win. And when I looked up, I realized all this stuff is not specifically for Black people. It's for minorities. It's for people of color. It's for everybody but us. So, you know, I had to kind of take it upon myself to do something that was strictly for Black people and write something up with some very smart, educated people and come up with a plan. It all happened after George Floyd was killed. So that's where I've been. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have to do it if it was being done.
But actually...
Okay. So right now he's saying he wouldn't have to do these things if it was already being done. Let me tell you something, man. Ice Cube right now is making the mistake that a lot of people make. I made that mistake. Everybody's made it at some point in their lives, right? Ice Cube is equating the things that he's aware of with the things that aren't happening, right? So if I am not aware of a particular thing, therefore that thing doesn't exist to me, therefore those things aren't happening. And it's all contingent upon my level of awareness, right? Now, there may be things going on that I might not necessarily be aware of that are speaking to the very things that I'm talking about. But because I'm aware of them, I kind of look silly saying that those things are happening when there are other people who can be like, can bring that to my attention. Like, oh, so that shit you were saying wasn't happening? Yeah, they doing that around the corner, right? You hear a lot about that. Like, say for instance, you would hear this topic come up. Like, so when people would talk about Black Lives Matter, right? White people use this tactic all the time, right? Black Lives Matter. You know, you guys only show up when the police shoot one of you guys. You know, you guys are killing each other like flapjacks over there. You know, you only show up when the police do it. But when Pookie shoots fucking Ray Ray, man, you guys are nowhere to be fucking found, man. You only show up when the fucking news cameras show up, man. And you want to talk about how bad the police are, but you're never around when you guys are killing each other, man. It's fucking bullshit. I'm tired of hearing it. You see that all the time. Meanwhile, in the hood, in various cities across the country, there are always some sort of anti-violence initiatives going on within the inner city. There's ceasefire initiatives going on within the city. We talk about, I talked about this years ago. There was a program in Chicago called the Interrupters, right? Where they were former gang members who would go, who had the credibility of being a part of the gang within the neighborhood, who had put in the work, so to speak, and they would go into these neighborhoods, and when things would happen, they would try to get into the middle of that to keep something else from happening, right? This is a state-funded program. They cut the funding for that program, right? And then guess what else happens? After they gut the funding for that program, and then violence tends to go up, guess what happens? Oh, 54 people were shot in the south side of Chicago this weekend. What about the south side of Chicago? There's always a shooting. There's always people getting killed over there. What the fuck's going on down there? Like, they always do this, right? And part of it is because they aren't aware and they don't really give a fuck. They don't care what's going on in those neighborhoods. So I say all that to say this. You not being aware of something does not mean that something doesn't exist. Ice Cube is making that motherfucking mistake right now to say that, like, yo, I wasn't aware of these other things that were happening, so therefore I decided I was going to step up and I was going to do this. Stepping on and denigrating and disrespecting the people who are already out there putting in that work, right? Just because you are not aware of some shit doesn't mean that shit isn't in place, man. Doesn't mean it's not happening. So that was one part that I kind of wanted to address to this interview. The other part about this was, and this is something that I thought was very disrespectful that Cube said too. Yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and pull this up. He believes that like nothing has been happening for Black people. So
over 7,000 Black people elected in office in high positions throughout this country. Over 7,000. And we haven't moved an inch. Don't ask me where have I been. The question is, where the hell are you at?
Well, here's the deal, though.
Again, this is said by somebody who's been clearly uninformed and not even inclined to be informed, right? This is said by somebody who is not necessarily aware of, not necessarily aware of all of the legislation that had been blocked, all of the legislation that had been proposed, all of the legislation that had been repealed, all of the things that were being put in place in which to help Black people progress, right? So one of the biggest issues that we have right now is the issue of criminal justice. Like, he talked about George Floyd's killing, activating him to get, to put something on the table, so to speak. And one of the things that I think is very interesting was like, when Barack Obama was president of the United States and we had Eric Holder was the Attorney General of the United States, what they were doing was during like the initial like move for the Black Lives Matter movement, what they were doing was they were going into police departments across the country and they were enforcing consent decrees, right? Now the consent decrees were to initiate some reforms to get the police department to work on an equitable level and to get them to actually adhere to the laws as it applied to who they were policing and how they policed them, right? One of the very first things that this Trump administration did when they came into power, at the time, Attorney General Jeff Sessions repealed those consent decrees, right? And they may have, I think, issued only one consent decree afterwards after that. So in the last 3.5 years, there's been one consent decree on one police department in all of the nation, right? We talk about how they've tried to reverse some of the criminal justice reforms as far as like the crack to cocaine disparity, like the charging and like the how they charge Black people, how they charge the differences between crack and possession of crack and powder cocaine, like trying to repeal a lot of that stuff back. We see they're trying to get rid of Obamacare and everything else. Like for those of you who believe that the Obama administration didn't do shit and weren't trying to advance the event, or wasn't trying to do anything for the advancement of Black people, ironically, the Trump administration is finding shit damn near every day to try to pull back, right? All of these rights that we think we have, all of these rights that we think we got in stone, the Republican Party and this Trump Republican Party in particular is playing this shit like a game of Uno and pulling the motherfucking reverse card on us.
Reverse, 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 reverse.
That's what it is, right? So, yeah, man, like to say that there's been no progress, man, as they try to pull back on the progresses that we made is disrespectful as fuck to the work that everybody who came before yo just got it activated as did, man. So yeah, that's on there. Now, another part of this interview that I thought was interesting is that Alicia Garza was brought in on this interview, and she asked Q, who did he consult when he developed or started to develop this contract with Black America? And honestly, man, I'm gonna just say this, man. The answer was very motherfucking telling, and it put everything, it crystallized so much for me. But here we go.
Hey, Cube, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. So, I mean, I guess my first question would be, you know, we're in the midst of an incredible movement moment. Folks are all over the country, have been organizing for over 7 years, if not longer, trying to turn Black Lives Matter into a movement that can impact not just protest, but also policy. I did have a chance to read both versions of the contract with Black America, and I'm just curious, are there activists or organizers in this movement that you've been connected to who have been doing some of this legislative advocacy and policy advocacy work?
Yeah, we connected with ADOS, and we helped get a bill passed in California. Governor Gavin Newsom passed AB 3121, which starts the conversation about reparations in California. So we have been connected with, a grassroots organization. We want to connect with as many grassroots organizations who are not connected to any other so-called powers that be, strictly grassroots. And we definitely want to connect with them, people who definitely have no ulterior motives, who really just want to see money get in the hands of the people who built this country and the ancestors and family of the people that built this country.
All right. Now, the answer to that question was, like, she asked him who he had been talking to in order to come up with this contract with Black America. And he said ADOS. That crystallized so much for me. That made suddenly it made sense as to why Cube and went down this road and he's become a part of the Special HOTEP unit. We've already talked about how the ADOS movement, or those connected with starting the ADOS movement, have already been promoting Donald Trump as a political option for them, right? We've talked already how the ADOS movement is attempting to divide up Black Americans on this descendants of slavery versus those of you who may have come on another whose folks may have gotten dropped off on another boat, right? And the problem with this idea that we need a special designation between ADOS and those who are, maybe from the Caribbean, maybe you come from Haiti, maybe you come from the Dominican Republic, maybe you come from Puerto Rico, maybe you come from Mexico, Bermuda, wherever you come from, right? Maybe you're just an immigrant from the continent, from Nigeria or Cameroon or wherever you come from, right? You come to America and you live in America as a Black person in America. I'm gonna tell you something right now. When a white person looks at you, they don't give a fuck if you from Nigeria. They don't give a fuck if you from the Cameroon. They don't give a fuck if you from Detroit. They look at you as another nigga, right? They look at you as another nigga. And so for like this ADOS shit that Ice Cube and somebody like, what's my man? Tariq Nasheed was on this dumb shit. They call themselves foundational Black Americans. Like they even the branches are branching the fuck off on each other, right? But what you do is you separate Black people from Black people. And when you separate Black people from Black people, we don't have that oomph right here. And it's all simply divide and motherfucking conquer. So if you got a nigga like Ice Cube, someone with the prominence of Ice Cube, who's at this point done, he went from motherfucking fuck the police to are we there yet? Right? Amazing growth. But then you find out this nigga is like politically, he's thinking at 51 the same way he was at 22. Right? So when he said he was aligned, he aligned himself with ADOS, and these were the people who helped him craft this particular contract with Black America and everything else. And like you could tell this in his language when he started talking about it. He's talking about minorities and they talking about people of color. No, I'm talking about Black people. Like, nigga, like when they decide, when you in front of when the police pull you over, they don't give a damn whether you from the continent, whether you from the islands, or whether your ass from Compton. Use a nigga to them, to this system. And dividing yourself or trying to separate yourself off ain't gonna help you not one bit. And then you're gonna find yourself looking to us, coming back, just like motherfucking Stringer Bell did, coming back to the Barksdale, like, yo, we need to go get this nigga. Like, nah, nigga, that's what you get for playing these fucking away games. That shit is on you. That shit is on you. So, yeah, man. And lastly, Alicia Garza, she asked him this question about, like, of course, like I said, he's taking great pains to say he's not endorsed Donald Trump, but he's linked to them right now, right? He's saying he hasn't endorsed them, but he's linked to them. But she's trying to understand, like, with all of the things that are attached with Donald Trump, how then do you find yourself working with somebody like that? So she asked, it was a very pertinent question, and I want to play this here for you guys.
Do you think that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization? Because I know for the last year I've been getting death threats. I have security now 24/7 because Donald Trump and his administration has been targeting me and Patrice and Opal and thousands of other activists across the country. I understand what you're saying about trying to talk to the people in power, but I think there is a difference here in terms of who we align ourselves with. And I can't at all say that I take a neutral stance here. You haven't endorsed Donald Trump explicitly, but I am just curious about how you meet those things and how you match those things. How do you put forward a Black agenda with a president that is attacking Black people, attacking Black organizers, attacking Black activists, and literally daring and threatening to throw us in jail for the organizing that we've been doing?
Well, I mean, both candidates, have their record of
there's that both sides
what they've done to Black people. You can look at them and see them out. I don't think Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. So that's what I think. What the president think about Black Lives Matter, that's his personal problem. Right now we feel that somebody's going to be the president. I would love to work with both parties. I'm not against the Biden campaign or nothing like that. Whoever becomes the president, I would definitely be pushing this program on them. And not only the presidents, but Congress people, senators, private sector, you name it. If you go through the contract, you could probably come up with a list of about 500 companies we can talk to about this situation. So the thing is, what I don't think is healthy for Black people is to automatically jump on one side, and if the other side loses, we just wait for 4 years to engage and hope our side win. It's time for us to let both sides understand this is a bipartisan issue like anything else going on in America.
Keith, I gotta ask you this.
All right. So yeah, that was the last thing on that. But the other thing, like, again, he's going back to that both sides shit. And it's clear that there isn't an equivalency there. He's operating under the pretenses of this false equivalency that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are operating in the same way, when the evidence is clear that they're not. The evidence is clear that they're not. One side is engaging the African American community, the Black community. One side is openly antagonistic towards us, and they will use certain Black people in order to appear not to be so. But they're openly antagonistic towards what would advance Black people in this country. And so, like, this both sides of the same coin, is lesser of two evils bullshit that, some niggas be on. Like, truthfully speaking, man, like, honestly, it's disappointing, it's disheartening to see a nigga of this stature fall for this this low information bullshit, man. That's the thing that like bothers me. And this is why I've been so passionate about it. And this is why I've been talking about it so strongly, man, because like I can't stand to see us out here looking this crazy. I love us too much for us to be out here looking this motherfucking dumb, man. But yeah, man, he went on, he later went on Chris Cuomo's show, and you know, Don, like, imagine being black checked by Don Lemon, bro. Like Don Lemon, he of, you know, like pull your pants up and respectability and all of the other, you know, like imagine being black checked by him. But yo, man, yeah. Whoo. That's been I was going to say proud to be an American. That's been Special Hotep, yo. In the black community, pseudo-consciously based offenses are considered especially heinous. In the Yonk right, the dedicated misogynists who perpetuate frauds are members of an elite squad known as a Special Hotep unit. These are their stories.